Same here.
I'm Melanie Swayze, a global real estate advisor with Gibson Sotheby's based in Metro Boston. I closely advise homebuyers and sellers of all stages of life, guiding them to intelligent, winning decisions.
I'm Derek Lumpkins, a real estate investor with a background in community organizing. I also enhance equity and inclusion initiatives at companies and organizations, and I guide leaders through executive coaching.
When we get together, we dive into the intersections of culture, class, mindset, and Black freedom.
Welcome to the Black Landing Forum,
a podcast about Black wealth, power, and land.
Hola, Melanie.
Hola, Derek.
¿Cómo estás?
Bien, bien. ¿Y
Sí.
tú?
Muy bien, muy bien. Estoy disfrutando la vida.
Sí, sí. Bueno.
So, uh, for those of you who don't speak Spanish, we were just saying hello, just the basic greetings. And why? Why are we speaking in Spanish? Do you want to say why, Melanie?
Well, we spent a week together in Barcelona.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is our belated recording
Feeling.
after that. So before we went, so I was back in Boston in the late winter, early spring. And before I left to continue my travels, we posted a little thing. Some of you may have seen it, some of you may not have, where we said, "Oh, Melanie's going to come to Barcelona. We're going to meet in Barcelona and then travel around for a little bit. I'm going to show her around." And so we did. We did that back in May, the end of May. We haven't had a chance to do a recording since then.
Yeah.
Um, but this is the moment we're going to do that. So not only this, but this will not be one of those, oh, so I saw this church and I ate this bowl of whatever. It's not a
Tapas.
Yeah, this plate of tapas. This is not this is not going to be a travel blog. This is more about how we're going to tie it back to, as our theme is, Black wealth, power, and land in some way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
But I do want to start off by saying that I was really surprised by just how much you enjoyed Barcelona. I didn't, because I didn't really plan on trying to convince you to like it. I was just like, yeah, come over, we'll hang out, we'll see the sights, we'll go around, I'll show you, introduce you to some people, and then you'll go back to Boston. So yeah, do you want to just give a quick synopsis of what you enjoyed about your time here?
Well, I love you reminding me of that. Interestingly, I'm getting a little bit teary just thinking about it. I mean, one I will say, I have spent time in Europe, and now probably like 20, 25 years ago. I did live in Rome for a semester, and so something about being in um, an old city and in the historic center of a city just gets my heart. I mean, it's a visceral experience for me. The architecture, the streets, the narrowness, the sound of your voice echoing in an alleyway, which really is a street, the height of the buildings, the fact that people are on the ground doing things by foot. And it's just moving to me. So I arrived early, early in the morning. I think it was on a Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I took a brief little nap, and then we're like, let's go out. And we walked the old city for about 5 hours. And midway in that walk, I knew that this was going to be the first of many trips to Barcelona. I was in love with that city within the first 5 hours on that walk.
So is that the urban planner side of you talking, or is there something else about it?
It's certainly that. And I don't even know exactly what to pinpoint about planning. Um, but there is something instructive about, like I say, people living their life in a way that feels village like.
Hmm.
It's a dense place, but there are like village centers and people converge in courtyards, and there's live music and people buying things right on the street, and it's just alive but also really relaxed. And I happened to arrive, thankfully, right as the humidity had let up. or hadn't really set in. The humidity hadn't set in, but the pollen had just let up,
Mm-hmm.
and the tourists hadn't yet descended. And so it just felt like I was at home in a place where other people were at home. And I always, that's how I travel as a traveler is I'm not really interested necessarily in a tourist beat, but I want to feel how people live. And
Mm-hmm.
so that might be a planning kind of oriented way in me. Um, but just to see the transitions of the neighborhoods and how people are making their lives in a very urban way, but a way that's gorgeous. And you can feel the age of, you can feel the times, walking under some really ornate archway. I feel that someone else like me was doing that walk in the 1700s. I could feel it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of it is you're feeling the history, um, and you're feeling the present, and all of it feels very alive. And I
Mm-hmm.
love,
Mm-hmm.
plus
And
love
one of the,
Spanish and seeing that there's literally remarkable food everywhere you turn. Like you just turn your body.
right.
And there is food or there are crafts or there's other art to take in. It's just, and the graffiti is just like wow, there's just so much personality and presence and aliveness in the streets. I love it.
Yeah. Um, I think I said to you when you were visiting that amongst Black America, Spain has a bad reputation. I've heard from Black Americans, some Black Latin Americans, mostly from Black Americans, who are just like, why do you spend so much time in Spain? Why do you like Spain? Aren't the Spanish racist? And my counter to that often is, well, there's racism everywhere. I mean, hello America, guess where you are?
We kind
Um,
of specialize in that. Yeah.
what, reminding people of where they are?
No, the United States specializes in racism. I think
Oh,
we're good
yeah.
exporters also. Uh,
Yeah, of
maybe
the structure of the structures and the ways in which to evolve it. It evolved in the U.S. a
precisely
lot.
the structural
Yeah,
ways. Yeah.
yeah. And so, I mean, not to put you on the spot, but I was having flashbacks to the conversation that we had several episodes ago around Blacksit,
Yeah.
where we were
Yeah.
talking to our two guests around why spend more time outside of the U.S. And then what that's like. Because and also I remembered your responses to like why we should not spend time outside the U.S., why
Oh,
we
very
should not live there.
strong
And
feelings,
so,
thoughts about that. Hmm.
yeah, and I can see the evolution in you day by
Yeah.
day by day.
Yeah.
And you know, like I know that I've always been interested in Spain because I've always been drawn to the music and to the dance, flamenco in particular, because Spain of course is more than that, but that in particular was my first draw into the music, into the country and the culture, and then it's kind of grown from there, especially as I've met more people and had more friendships here. Um, and so, were you bringing any of the concerns around race and racism with you? And if so, what sort of broke those and made you sort of feel more comfortable being here?
Hmm. You know, if I did, I don't recall. I think I already had in my mind that Barcelona stands apart from lots of places. Like there's Madrid, there are other places that are draws for people from around the world, they're draws for tourism. But Barcelona seems, at least from everything I've been hearing in the last 15, 20 years, including with you, seems to be a place where people converge from all walks of life. But not just that, it just seems to have a kind of cultural, like a punkness about it. It's punk, it's edgy, in a certain way doesn't give an F about what other people think. And that's part of its aliveness. It's constantly making and remaking itself in all these ways. And one of the things I learned from you as we were doing our walk, you gave me just superb history, historic tours around different areas of the city. Um,
Superb.
superb,
Superb? Wow.
superb.
That's high
Yeah,
praise. Because
no,
I
it's
was
true.
just, I felt like I was winging it half the time.
Oh, it was so good. It was
Oh,
rich.
okay.
But one of the things you helped me really understand is that Barcelona was put on the map in this way. from the, was it 1992 Olympics?
Yep, the Summer
And
Olympics.
and you can see that. So you can ask from an urban planning perspective, was that beneficial in the long run? I mean, you could still see areas of the city that were completely developed, redeveloped
Hmm.
and developed from from the 90s. And that made this such an international draw of a place. But I think what it's kept is its funkiness, its artiness, its playfulness. Um, and so I think I was already coming with kind of sense of openness to that, feeling like, oh,
Hmm.
people are used to seeing Americans and they're used to seeing people of all shades and walks of life. So I don't think I went there with my guard up in the way that perhaps I might have if I was visiting Sevilla or Madrid, to be honest.
Hmm.
So yeah, I expected to feel at home in a certain way in Barcelona, but it blew me away. It was just so comfortable.
Well, well, that's
It was
good.
so
That's
comfortable.
good. I mean, I think part of it is, I mean, part of it for me has always been the level of
Yeah,
progressiveness that Barcelona has. I mean,
yeah,
as two folks who live in Boston, you've been to New York, I'm sure,
yes,
Chicago, Philadelphia. I mean, there's,
yes.
the Northeast and the North, we've been to or have lived in these really progressive cities. But there's something about Barcelona that feels more progressive. Like it pushes the edge
Describe
beyond.
it for our listeners. What are those things for you?
It's more a feeling than something I can think of concretely. Well,
Yeah,
actually, it's a little of both because it's the feeling of, something like you said, where the locals here, the residents here are welcoming. Part of it's cultural. People are very welcoming. It's Mediterranean can be very welcoming of people from wherever they are, and whatever they look like. And there's a curiosity
yeah,
that is not, it doesn't cross the line to exoticism. It's a curiosity of like, oh, who are you? Where are you from? What are you interested in? Why'd you come here? Oh, do you want to know about that? Do you also know about these other things? Like, there's this openness to sharing and to making people feel a part in some way, in some levels. I mean, the more time you spend here, the more people you get to know, the deeper you get. But
yeah,
I find that a lot of people don't want visitors to have just a superficial experience. They want people to get the sense of like, we're a real city, we have history, we have culture that's different from mainstream Spanish culture. We have a language which is different from Spanish. I mean, there's this real sense of, like you said, authenticity, but also this real sense of like a different identity that really kind
yeah,
of drives it. Part of this historic, the tension between Catalonia and other parts of Spain and France as well. They want to establish themselves in a way that, may not be presented through
yeah.
the official tourist brochures. So, that's one thing.
And you feel that. You feel a little bit of a
Oh,
like
yeah.
an underground, or sorry, underdog, and underground, both.
Mm,
But an underdog kind of culture. Like it's very much stating itself and showing itself. The signs, the menus are in Catalan. You're
mm,
expected to be able to do some kind of um, uh, translation interpretation for yourself to keep up with it. I think that
mm,
keeps everybody humble because you can't assume that someone you're speaking to speaks only Spanish. And so that keeps everybody open and curious. And yeah, it does take you. There's a difference to Catalan, and it takes effort to try to
mm,
read and pronounce things in Catalan. I think that sense of like strong sense of identity, and the word that's coming to my, I'm trying to find the words, but it's like attesting. It's like claiming
mm.
um, over and over in all these ways is really important. I think that's part of what makes it feel edgy and feel like not all resolved.
Mhm. But
Yeah.
there's also a grace and a forgiveness.
Yes.
So, as you
This is
mentioned
true.
around like language, whether it's Spanish or Catalan, there are people who come who don't speak either one. And so there's a grace and a forgiveness like, oh, you don't speak Catalan because I mean, really there's not that many people who do in the world. So there's a forgiveness and a grace of like if you as long as you try and there's some level of respect around that.
Absolutely.
As you should have in any place, not just when you're coming here, but in any place you go, in any part of the world,
Yeah.
you should have some grace and respect. But I feel like there's a welcomeness to not just tourists, but visitors, but also immigrants, and migrants. So, several years ago when I was coming, when the migrant crisis in the Mediterranean was at its most acute, in some of
This
the
is North
city,
Africans coming in. North
well,
Africans coming into Spain.
well, it was Africans generally coming through North Africa. So it
Oh,
was mostly
okay.
people from sub-Saharan regions passing through
Yes.
North Africa and coming across the Mediterranean. And there were more than a few, including City Hall, there were more than a few municipal buildings that had signs, banners on them actually, banners that said "Refugees Welcome." And I know I saw it in Spanish. I'm pretty sure I saw it in Catalan, depending on the neighborhood. I might have even seen it once or twice in English. And so there's a sense of like, you know, there's that openness and that welcome and that sense of wanting to recognize each other's humanity. And I think that also
Yes.
shows, oh, so yeah, so this is where I didn't finish. So that shows on a more policy level as well. So again, those banners were on municipal buildings because this, I believe the city government and maybe even the regional government really was trying to be there to support migrants who were coming in because, they have nothing. They have nothing and they're desperate and they need support. But even the government, the national government, has done a lot. In some ways, they could do some more, but they've done a lot in terms of welcoming migrants, supporting them in some ways, not pushing them back out into the ocean the
Yeah.
way other European countries do. And I
Yeah.
won't get into who those are. There's some stuff they could do on the ground in terms of like, once the migrants are here, yeah, you've given them food and shelter, but can you give them some paper so they can actually have real jobs and
Integrate.
make some real money? Yeah, or at least, become more integrated financially. And also the way in which Spain has taken a stance on Gaza and some other um, issues around wars going on around the world, mostly in Europe, but around the world. Um, you know, Again, there's just a difference here that I think permeates across society and across societal levels. That's not to say that it'll always be that way. I have a good friend who says, well, he suspects that the next national election will result in a right wing government. We'll see. I mean, having spent most of my time in the cities, I don't see that, but also I'm not tapped in the way that, of course, a local person would be either.
Right, where they can see the signals because that's sweeping
Right.
so much of Europe. Anyhow,
Ex-
I want to go back
exactly.
to part of what you were asking me earlier about my experience as a Black person and very visibly Black person. I think part of my experience is also due to, again, going back to the Olympics, it's almost like a third language of Barcelona. You could correct me if this is not accurate, but this is what my experience was. It's like a third language is English. Most people are
Hmm.
prepared to speak in English and to be very welcoming to you in English. And I think that that's part of where having an American, the privilege of being an American, allows you this kind of easy passageway, this easy navigability of the city. And then being Black, I didn't feel like I stood out in the way that I might
Hmm.
feel in many parts of Paris. I didn't feel that. I felt like, if anything, like understood and recognized, and that was significant, I will say. That
Can
was
you explain
significant.
that a little bit more? Because, normally when I think of Black people in Paris, I mean, of
Yes.
course, and, I was saying to you before we started recording that 100 years ago, we would have been in the middle of the Harlem Renaissance. We would have been in a time when people like Langston Hughes and Josephine Baker were in Paris because they needed to escape what was going on in the US. And so it's interesting, and that's kind of the cultural legacy that Paris has carried forward for more than 100 years. And so, I'm curious to hear you say that you wouldn't necessarily feel that in Paris, but you did feel that in
Yeah.
Barcelona. So I would love to
And
hear
I
more
will
about that.
say, I know you have at least one close friend who's spent good time in Paris, like being there with
Mm,
family, and yeah, she's going to navigate in a different way. I think that also comes down to class. I think that's true
mm,
if you're talking about Rome, right?
mm,
Um, and Paris was a place I visited as a tourist, really.
mm,
I feel like when I was in Barcelona, I had ties to a community.
mm,
I was being introduced, and it felt like I was staying with friends. And
mm,
so I probably experienced the city differently than I would have if I was just staying in an Airbnb doing a kind of like tourist beat thing. Even
mm,
even if that tourist thing is not going to like all the big sites, but is going to local shops. I know that in Paris, like one of the things that struck me immediately, the first time I was in Paris, was in the cab hearing Nina Simone. I'm just like,
Mhm.
what is
Mhm.
happening? My mind, And then
Mhm.
any restaurant I went in, I'm hearing like 90s hip hop. I was like,
Mhm.
whoa. So there's a way that Black American culture in particular has permeated so much of culture there on the
Mhm.
streets and in art. Um, and however, I still feel like I'm treated like an American. Whether it's Black American or not, I'm not quite sure, but it's not, I haven't necessarily felt that welcome. You go into a shop and there's not that much patience. It's like, but I think
Embarrassed, you're
that's
saying.
probably a little Parisian. It's kind of like,
Mm.
do you know what you're doing or not? Because I don't have time for this. So it doesn't
Mhm.
feel that kind of, you don't feel a kind of camaraderie in the way that in Barcelona, it's like people are chatting you up in the
Mhm.
cafe and the bakery and almost like practically going
Mhm.
to pull up a chair and sit down.
They just might sometimes.
you know and so that also then speaks to some of what was so disarming about being in Barcelona. And again, I'm careful to not just romanticize it, but it was a romantic experience, truly being there. I fell in love, and I wasn't planning on that, and I'm not necessarily easily impressed with things. And so
Mhm.
I was really taken with, part of it is people just live well there. Now, people live well on very little resource. And I think, again, I go back to
Mhm.
like punk and edge. The thing that I walked away with in the biggest way, the biggest impact, was on a cellular level. It was subterranean. It was subversive. Uh, because I spent a week, whatever it was, 8, 9 days, in a culture where people work is not the top of their list. Their work, their profession, it's not the thing that defined them,
The
and it's
social
not the way
climbing.
no social. I mean, I didn't encounter any social climbing, and we met with Sotheby's colleagues there.
Mhm.
Like, it's
Mhm.
like, wait, what? Like, you're not defining yourself by how big, how fast, how far, how steep. It- You're just like, is this food good? When is the next meal? I need to get outside. I just came in from outside.
Where's the
I'm not
garden?
sure. I closed up the shop. Not sure when we're going to open back up. See you when we see you. Like,
Mhm.
but like things still get done. Like, it's
Mhm.
functioning without this kind of grind and burnout. And it's bizarre to see that. Like, it looked like that to me along across all classes that I observed. People were pretty freaking relaxed. And as one of my colleagues said to me, the average income apparently in Barcelona is about somewhere between 18 and 22,000 euro.
Mhm.
And that
A
was
year.
stunning to me
Yeah.
per year.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, Spanish wages are lower than most wages in other Western countries. So
yes.
which is why a lot of younger people in previous years, and maybe still now, I don't know, left for Northern Europe because they can make more money in Iceland or Scotland or England or Ireland or
Wow,
Germany or
even Iceland.
Denmark, whatever. Oh yeah.
Well, but okay, but for someone like me, right? And this is where we get to that rub where that I was worried about in our Blacksit episode, where it's like, oh, but people live so well here. I mean, and it doesn't take that much, especially if you're coming with the US dollar. I mean, some of the food I ate would have cost at least 2 times, maybe 3 times what I paid there for,
Hmm.
compared to what I might eat in Brookline or Boston. And so that was stunning. It's not like people are living meagerly. They're somehow eating well. They seem to have health care. I just didn't observe desperation in any way. And that blew my mind because back home over here, right, there's just this like, you're racing just to keep up with the times, just to keep up with your ambitions. And you're tired and you have edge because you're on edge.
Hmm.
And there, these people were just like nonplussed. Like,
From your perspective. because we don't have a Spanish person here talking about their experiences.
However, I went out to social gatherings with you, right?
Mm. Hmm.
And even talking to like one of your friends who's an engineer, right? Like engineers work long hours, they're exhausted. This guy was like on the one night I saw him. I feel like I met him more than once. He was so warm. I feel like I spent a lot of time with him. I'm not. I might have only met him for
I'm
one night.
trying to think of who it is now. Who's the engineer?
His name's not coming to me right now, but glasses, slender, tall. He greeted me with this warm, long hug.
Oh, you mean the cybersecurity guy?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. All this to say, he's like on one or two of like three or four outings that night. I'm like, he's not tired. He's like
He's
left
also
work early enough
young.
that he's like going to multiple gatherings, hanging out with friends, going to this thing and then that thing, and people are out late having dinner. The sun is up. There's just it's like their center of gravity is more about relationships than getting shit done. And it's not that stuff's not getting done, but that's not the thing that's pulling them along. And feeling harried is not the thing that's keeping them, from, tipping over. It's like somehow the work happens in between. And that was really stunning for me to
Hmm.
recognize on a nervous system level that you could still be, say, functional or perform or take care of things without having your whole identity encrusted around trying to accomplish and keep up and not let things fall apart. People don't seem to mind things being a little loose. Like I say, siesta. You don't know for a given shop what their siesta hours are going to be that day. And they're not freaking worried about it. Like you show up, if they're closed, they expect you'll come back. Like, so that in itself is just emblematic, right? People are not desperate and urgent. They are focused on people, they're focused on connection, they're focused on food, they're focused on relaxing, they're focusing on recovery. And so for me, I was just like, wow, I came home with this kind of pressure lifted off of my chest. I was like, I have been living, like, it just was like my brain was turned inside out. I was like, I've been living a lie. I've been living a lie. I have been living a lie, a lie, a lie.
And that's something that I've been telling people back
Yes.
in Boston for a very long time, which is we don't have to live this way. Because okay, a couple of things. So one is, um, so yes, people don't have the same type of desperation or the same level of desperation as we may perceive in the States, but there is some strong concern around housing because housing
Oh,
here
of course.
has appreciated so much that it's hard for people to buy younger people to buy houses, rent to rent.
Largely,
So there is
largely in
that
part due to
here.
people like us coming there and buying real estate, to be frank.
It's that, but it's also the speculators who are. It's not so much people who are buying a property here or there individually. It's more the speculators who are buying buildings and turning them into tourist flats.
There.
It's
You can
more
say that
that than
tourism.
it is an individual thing.
And that's why you're going to see Barcelonans strategically outside with their water guns at high tourist season, sort of taunting tourists because it's like
Hmm.
you all, it's a deluge. You don't understand that you're in a place where people live. Right. So there, that you're fair. It's more about the tourist drive for housing. But the
Hmm.
point is, yeah, it's changing the economy for people. It's changing the equilibrium. And even with
Okay.
that, people they didn't behave resentful in a one-to-one way, which
Right.
again, I wasn't there in the high season, but that was pretty humbling to me.
Right. Right. Yes. And the other thing I will say is that the US feels like a financial Hunger Games.
Yes.
And I don't, and part of it is just the structure. Like the US, what I sometimes say to people, it's a little tongue in cheek, but is the US is not a country, it's a company that's shaped like a country. Basically, everybody in the US, if you're working there, you are a cog in a machine, you are a dollar, or you are something that is meant to churn out
To
dollars
produce
for
a
somebody
dollar.
else. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you are not producing, you are made to feel alien. You're made to feel weird. You're made to feel sort of like you should be doing something. You're meant to always be doing something, and that rest is almost a sacrilege. Like rest is not prioritized, rest is not valued, even though rest is what as humans we need in order to function, in order to thrive, in order to produce. I mean, I definitely was given that message explicitly at my last job, which is what drove me away from it. I was sort of like, I can't work for this person, I can't work in this industry if I'm not even allowed to rest and I'm working these extra long hours and I literally am dreaming about work, to the point where
Yeah,
I
it's
start
like
getting
rest is a
physically
sign
ill.
of weakness. It's almost like if you're
Yeah.
resting, you're weak, you're not keeping up. And that gets into the bones. That gets into our
Mm-hmm.
consciousness in such profound ways that being outside of it, and I don't mean just being on vacation. I mean being in a place where people are just not wired like that makes you realize that you've been living in some strange, I don't know, matrix. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, as we were having these kinds of conversations while we were in Barcelona together, it's kind of reminded me of our conversations with Sister Sadada around resting and letting go and, just allowing yourself to feel softer so that you can recharge and redirect your energies into new
Yes.
ways.
Yes.
Um, but then I'm also just thinking about current events. It's sort of like, and this is kind of where I was going before, history is being expunged from official places, and then current culture is being suppressed and erased. And so, I kept thinking, well, how do we draw from, how do we think about the future? How do we dream of the future? How do we plan for the future? Does it come from other places? Does it come externally? Or do we have to leave and go to an external place to dream and to envision and then bring it back? Because I
I
feel
just want
like,
to let that rest. You saying
sure,
that. Do we have to
sure.
go to an external place, another place to dream? I think we should just like let that sink in. First of
But do
all,
we?
to get to dream,
Mm,
like to recognize that we could, should, can, would, if given a let up, dream. You know,
mm-hmm,
I've been listening to a podcast with where artists of all walks of life get into these deep conversations with the host, and person after person talks about like the importance of the lazy mind, of just being lazy,
mm,
of doing nothing,
mm-hmm,
because that's how new things germinate, and that's part of what's being stolen, snatched from us in this U.S. culture here. Or the NAP minister, Trisha Hersey, who's based here in the U.S. I believe she's based in Atlanta, talks about the grind, this capitalist, patriarchal grind of U.S. culture that would snatch away from us, specifically Black people who descended from slavery, take away from us that innate natural ability to rest and recover. And not just recover, because that even is about production, but
mm,
to, as you said, redirect our energy to be of existence aside from the fact that there's work to do. And that's what I got a taste of in Barcelona, where people can exist in spite of the fact that there's stuff to do. And the stuff will happen, but it's not the focal point necessarily. It's certainly not the focal point all day. And it's like for short parts of the day, to be honest. And then, but people don't seem to be failing for that, and they're not worried about failing. So to be in an environment where people aren't worried about failing is like mind blowing. So what would it mean for us to, rather than be focused on not falling apart, not failing, be able to like dream and be curious what would happen? And
mm-hmm,
maybe there's reasons in our culture, in our economy, that we're not encouraged to rest and dream and question, right? Like we think of ourselves as so independent and so self determined and so outspoken in US culture, but actually, we're seeing and living and dwelling in a really narrow frame, a narrow box. It's a narrow box. And so now I understand what you've been preaching for 20 years, Derek. Um, and why you've been drawn to Barcelona over and over and over again. I get it. And it's the thing that I was afraid. Like I was afraid when we had that Blacksit episode of this conclusion of, well, the thing to do is to just go somewhere else where it's easier for us Americans. So I think that there is a rub there, and I think there's a responsibility to not just fall into that mode. But I think it's a really relevant question in a way that I couldn't feel in a somatic way several months ago when we had this conversation with two other Black Americans who spend a lot of time abroad in Europe and in South America. I couldn't, without thinking about colonialism and all the ways that we export our uh, imperatives around the planet, I couldn't easily give myself over to the idea that there's something to gain actually in a way that even could benefit us back home for some folks like us going abroad and being in an environment where people actually do know how to rest and play and ideate and create, and there isn't like a threat. Like we ran into so many artisans. Like you could go into a shop where you're watching people actually at work making their ceramics, right? Or buy things. I bought all this jewelry. You and I had this like afternoon where I got.
Well, you had a little bit more of the afternoon. I was just watching. I was like, okay, you going to just buy up half the shop here.
Derek was my nominal husband. This artist just was so convinced that he was my spouse and like pulled up a chair for him. We're outside in a courtyard, or like we're outside. There's like a fair, a sidewalk, kind of not even sidewalk, but like a fair
There's
in
an
a,
island or something. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, but just to watch her, all these things that she made, that she could talk to you in great detail. And it's not that we don't have wonderful places where you can go and meet the artist here in the US in the city, but this just felt like regular every day. It wasn't like a special event. It's just regular. It was just
Hmm.
regular.
Hmm.
Or, and then there's the history, like to walk inside a restaurant even and look down on the floor, and there is a glass covering. And beneath that glass covering that you're looking at, you can see down into the depths of the earth. You're looking at ruins. Like to be in a restaurant or a massage studio or a cafe and look down on the floor and see through the floor to all these ruins beneath gives you such perspective about what really matters, and who you really are in the scope of time, in the scope of space, in the scope of relations with other humans. And it's not just about what you can freaking produce,
Hmm.
but we get to create and make and share. So I don't know. I feel I can't go back. In my mind, I can't go back to not. I can't unsee. I can't unexperience
Hmm.
that. And I didn't even experience that living in Rome several years ago. There's something about Barcelona that's open.
Hmm.
It's intimate. It's relaxed. It's open, and it's not for sale. And that is really powerful, to be in
Hmm.
a place where people's consciousness is not for sale. That's basically what
Right.
I think we experienced.
Yeah. What you're saying right now is reminding me of something that Malia said in one of our other episodes. It also reminded me of something what Adam has said too. So both of them reference the marketplace of ideas
Yeah.
and how in the US the marketplace of ideas is being quickly shut down or it's being quickly controlled. And so what I've experienced in Barcelona many, many, many times is there's an openness, there's an interest in exchange of
Yes.
ideas, of culture, of music, of all kinds of things, because people want to learn, and it's people from all different age ranges from all across different parts of the city. It wasn't just young people from the hip neighborhoods.
That's true.
Sometimes I would run into older people who would be like, "Oh, where are you from? And do you know about this? And have you tried that? And why don't you come here?" And like, I wasn't I was almost literally taken by hand into certain places. And so, there's just an openness to exchange that, has just been shut down or that is quickly being shut down in the US, which is why I said earlier, well, my question earlier, which was, how do we bring that back? How do we bring
Yeah.
that in? Because if it gets shut down in the
Yeah.
ways in which people fear the worst, how can we restart it? it's going to be so hard to restart it. It's going to be in pockets. It won't be a broad sweep. Like, I don't know if it was ever a broad sweep, but at least, I don't think there was any place that I couldn't have gone to in the States and been like, okay, I'm not going to be able to find someone who's open minded.
Yeah.
Now I kind of wonder, are there just broad swaths of the States where I'm just kind of like, I can't go there because if I say diversity, if I say, gender or transgender, if I say something, I could be run out of town. This is one of those episodes. People for the audience, this is one of those episodes. Usually every 10th episode, we kind of do a slight recap of the ones that
Taking
came
stock.
prior to this.
Taking
Yeah, we
stock.
take stock, we kind of apply it and see how, like, what we discussed, we're applying to our thoughts and to our actions. This one just happens to coincide with our trip to Barcelona. And so, it's this interesting mix of, both the old conversations and the lived experiences and the trip at the same time. So, it's kind of fun and interesting to bring all of those pieces together into this conversation.
Yeah. You get to be in a place where you come back home, and it's not just because you took a break from work. It's not just vacation. It's not. It's like you come home and the pressure is let up off of your chest,
Mm.
where you realize, oh, it's not all up to me. I don't have to figure everything out. I don't have to fix everything. You can recognize that you're being held in a wider web of interconnectivity. And I think that's what I experienced in that place. Like, it's not all on me to know the answer, to propel things. And that is what I have carried. That's what I have cultivated, as a posture in US culture, as a Black person, as a Black woman, as a working class Black woman, child of immigrants, not taking anything for granted, taking any opportunity, like just wanting to ensure my not just survival, but my sustenance and my ability to thrive, like at all costs. Like, what if you could be in a place or be in a way or be in your mind where you're not working so damn hard? And I think that's it. It's like to be in a place where people can live well and they're not working so hard just to live well. So to come back and dare to have that perspective, to understand that maybe I could be taken care of and maybe I could expect more from my surroundings and not be so hard on myself, trying so hard to compare and compete because we're so competitive here. Even if we don't, name it that, we're really competitive, especially in the Northeast. Um, and what is it all for? So I honestly think I came home feeling like, wait, I'm nearing 50, and truly, like, what do I want my life to have been? I came home from that place where I feel people have things in a perspective that is over a broader sweep of time and just clearer about relations. And for me, I'm like, I do not want to waste my time grinding and trying so hard to achieve and accomplish. I want warm, and I have warm relations, but I want that to be at the heart of my life. And the other stuff will get figured out, however it gets figured out, because maybe I actually can't fail. If something falls apart, maybe it's not a failure. And I think that, again, it's so anti American to feel like, yeah, the stakes are not all stacked so just so that if one thing pulls, everything falls apart. And, oh, well, guess you got to start all over. It's all up to you. I mean, that individualism comes at a cost. And so I just really appreciated getting a taste. And I'm sure that that's true if you go to parts of Europe and Africa and uh,
South
certainly
America.
Asia, and probably, yeah, even South America, where people live more intergenerationally, where, yeah, it's not all on you as a nucleus of, or as a little individual cell, that you are part of a moving organism that cares for itself, that there's an organism that is that's part of an ecosystem where things you just
Community.
floating. You're floating because you're being held by the fact that everyone is holding something together. And I think that's what's missing here. There's a loneliness. I mean,
Mm,
they're even talking about the loneliness epidemic in the US, and this helps me understand it. It's like there's an isolation to our performance here. And what if we didn't
mm-hmm,
have to perform?
mm-hmm.
What if we just
Yeah.
lived and felt cared for and connected? So, just to say that that is tied to economics and that is tied to livelihood and mental health, and it is tied to how we set our priorities as Black people and as anybody in this culture. And I'm grateful to have gotten a taste of that. I want to drink more from that. And I will be back to Barcelona.
And I'm sure Barcelona will welcome you again with open arms.
Yeah, I already have spots in my mind where I'm like, and I don't mean tourist spots. I mean this shop that sells things made from locally harvested herbs, this massage place that I had a beautiful experience at, and I can tell that proprietor put her whole heart into that business. As she told me, over 20 years, she's put everything into building this special place, this tea house that is also a massage place, and it is so lovely and soulful, and like that still exists, against all the odds of what real estate costs and all of it. People are still putting their heart into a thing, and not just putting out a product, and that's good for our soul,
Hmm.
and it's good
Especially
to
in these
support
times.
economically. It's good to support economically. What's that?
I was saying, especially in these times in the US.
Yeah, man. I mean, we need to take every kind of bit of wholeness we can, and bring it back home, because these are some tough times. I mean, the whole time you and I are talking, I just keep thinking our government is asking people to self-deport. You
Hmm.
know?
Hmm. Yeah. And, I wasn't going to bring up this statistic. I was thinking about it earlier. I wasn't going to bring it up, but Spain is actually has one of the best economies in the world, if not the best economy in the world, or one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And a lot of people are attributing that to the immigration that has happened in Spain over the past 5 to 10 years. So
Mm,
many people have come to Spain to regenerate it and to bring in new ideas, to bring in new connections around the world, mostly from Latin America, but also from other parts of Europe and from Africa, and then increasingly more from Asia as well. Spain is growing pretty quickly, and of course that comes with some problems. But when you
absolutely.
contrast that to what's happening in the U.S., where we're moving immigrants, or tricking immigrants, or kidnapping immigrants, or forcing immigrants, or convincing immigrants to leave, and we can see how that's the jobs were still, the jobs report was still pretty good last month. But the question is, how much longer is this going to last, especially with the new bill that's been passed, the big, beautiful bill, and some of the other things? The dollar has been sinking, the stock market's kind of doing all right. But at some point, something is probably going to give. Like, I'm no economist, but just things that I've been reading, I'm a little worried for the states, and also tens of thousands of people have been fired, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. So something's going to give,
Yeah.
or there's going to be this huge turn in the economy.
Yes.
I don't know how, because now they're trying to make AI do everything. And it's I'll just say this one last thing. So there's this meme that was like, "Oh, can AI do my laundry?" And the guy's like, "No." "Oh, can AI fold my clothes?" And the guy's like, "No." The guy's like, "Well, can AI do my food shopping?" And the guy's like, "No, but AI can draw you a picture." I'm like, "Well, I can draw a picture." "Well, AI can do that for you." It's like, "Yeah, but AI can't do the things that I wanted to do. Why would I want to draw me this picture?" And so it's kind of like, if AI is coming to do all these things that we don't even need it to do or don't want it to do, what's the point? What are people going to do in the future? Huge tangent there, huge tangent, but it just seemed like
Oh, I
something that.
mean, we can add to the tangent. We can add to the fact that, on a policy level from the federal government, they're trying to figure out enticements to get people to make more babies.
Mm,
And when you think about which babies they're wanting people to make, that becomes clear when you
mm-hmm,
think about all the people who are being asked to self-deport. So there, I think we are going through an identity crisis, um,
really?
in
We've
the
been here
U.S.
before. We've been here before.
But
We just have
none,
technology to back it up now. We've been here before.
nonetheless, it's a crisis point
Mm-hmm,
that, I mean, I think all these battles are about demographic shifts.
mm-hmm,
And so it's like, how are we going to define ourselves along, well, can we, will we define ourselves and stand up for democratic principles and for community and for workers? Will we do that? Will we get it together? We're about to find out. And, I'm also saying this in the backdrop of 28 or 30 or so, uh, I think 27 to 30 young people just died in a flash flood
Hmm.
in
In
Texas.
Texas. Hmm.
And we don't know why there weren't warnings to evacuate, but one could speculate that it might have something to do with a breakdown in communications, not just state and local, but also from National Weather Service. And so it's like we're seeing the costs, and what are we going to make of them? Are we going to stand up? Are we going to fight? I don't know. But I think, yeah, this is not just about identity, as in, yes, there's a loneliness epidemic. And yes, young people are like unsure what to do about starting families all and all the rest because of all the uncertainty. you know, it's also like the daily survival, like that I know of by 1 or 2 degrees, multiple people who've been uh, snatched and deported already is alarming,
Hmm.
and so I, what to say except that we're fighting for our humanity, and it is good to go and be in a place and get a taste of a relaxed mode of sipping from humanity. It's like we are capable of doing this. As humans, we can do this. We can do this. We can do this.
We should do this.
I hope to say we will do this. It is our right to do this, to have security, to have connection, to have safety.
But what we also need is we need those dreamers. We need the
Yeah,
people who can take some of the desires and when I say dreamers, I don't just mean people who envision, but people who create. So the artists, the poets, all those people, the community organizers, all those people who can take desires and interests and understand needs and create them and create spaces and create opportunities for them to take root, develop, grow, and flourish. And with some of the ways in which that is constantly being stamped down and clamped down and blocked
yeah,
intentionally,
intentionally,
is like how do
systematically.
we how do we how do we find those new opportunities, and how do we find those people who will understand how to bring those opportunities to fruition?
And how do we nurture those people so that they have security, they have livable income, that they have secure housing, so that they can be in communities where they can ideate and create and um, share ideas? I mean, it's so basic, but critical. And I think that's the thing, that you're in a place like Barcelona and you don't want them to lose that in the face of all of this incoming tourism and the fact that people are less and less able to afford to live in the center of the city, including the old neighborhoods, these like soulful old neighborhoods. So like I think that they're going to fight to not let that slip, because it's so part of the fabric of that place, of people at the center, you know, metaphorically and literally. And so, yeah, how do we get that back
Hmm.
in US cities and in the countryside? How do we get that back?
Right. And just drawing upon one last thing from our conversation with Adam, it's not just about protecting the people, we also have to protect the communities themselves from being physically destroyed. Because if that's where things are being built, we have to make sure that that built environment, whatever it is, or that those things that are being constructed actually gets preserved and built upon.
Preserved economically
Preserved.
and policy wise, but also preserved from a climate perspective as well.
Yep. Yep.
There's lots to do.
Lots to do, and hopefully we've got some dreamers in our audience who have been thinking about this and who will be in touch with their dreams or with their actions. We'd love to hear from them, and also
Yeah,
just see what's going on around the country. So
yeah,
with that, that's the challenge to all of you who are in the audience right now. Let us know what's going on, and
yeah.
we'll be back.
We'll be
We'll be
back. And
back.
let us know what questions you think we could and should be surfacing related to
Mm-hmm.
all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, folks. All right, Melanie, I guess we're going to have to stop here.
Yes.
But again, send us your questions, send us your comments. We look forward to hearing and seeing from you. And we will see you on the next episode of the Black Lightning Forum. Take care.
Ciao for now.